The year is 1678, and Venice is at the height of its glittering power. The city floats on its canals like a dream, its palaces glimmering in the light of torches and candles, its masked festivals spilling through winding alleys, its air filled with the sound of music, pouring from churches and theaters. In a small house near the church of San Giovanni in Bergora, a child is born who will one day carry the sound of Venice to the world. His name is Antonio Lucio Vivaldi. The midwives note that he is frail, his breathing uneven, his skin pale. He is baptized almost immediately, not as custom, but as necessity, for his survival is uncertain. Yet this sickly boy will become a whirlwind of energy, writing more concertos than any composer before him, dazzling Europe with fire and invention, then dying poor and forgotten, only to be resurrected centuries later as one of the giants of classical music. Antonio's father, Giovanni Battista Vivaldi, is a violinist in the chapel orchestra of San Marco, that golden basilica whose domes capture the morning sun. From him, young Antonio learns the violin almost as if it were a second voice. Music runs through the father's veins and pours into the son. Venice at the time is obsessed with spectacle, with opera, with virtuosic display, and the boy breathes all this in like oxygen. But from the very beginning, his life is shadowed by illness. He suffers from a chronic condition, perhaps asthma, perhaps angina, that leaves him gasping for air, unable to sustain physical exertion. He will never be strong, never a soldier, never robust. Instead, his energy pours through the violin bow and through ink upon the page. At 15, he begins training for the priesthood. His family sees stability in the church, a way for this fragile boy to be provided for. In 1703, he is ordained, and the people of Venice nickname him Il Prete Rosso, the Red Priest, because of his striking hair, the fiery red inherited from his father. It is an image almost too perfect, a priest with flaming hair who will set music ablaze. Yet even though he says Mass, his health soon prevents him from fulfilling the duties of parish life. He is excused from celebrating the liturgy, and instead finds his vocation not at the altar but in music. That same year, 1703, Vivaldi takes a position at the Ospedale della Pietà, a charitable institution for orphaned and abandoned girls. To outsiders, it may sound like a place of gloom, but in Venice it was renowned for its music. The Pietà maintained an orchestra and choir made entirely of young women, trained to the highest level, and visitors from across Europe came to marvel at the beauty of their performances from behind latticed screens. Here, Vivaldi teaches violin, composes sacred music, and slowly transforms the Pietà into one of the most extraordinary musical establishments of the 18th century. For decades, he will return again and again to this place, shaping the sound of its orchestra, writing concertos tailored to the talents of his students, and astonishing audiences with what young women, hidden from public life, could achieve in sound. But Vivaldi's ambition was never limited to the Pietà. Venice at this time was a carnival of opera houses, and Vivaldi hurled himself into opera with a passion. His first opera, Ottone in Villa, premiered in 1713. He followed it with dozens more, some successful, some quickly forgotten. The Venetian public was fickle, and opera was a merciless business, full of rivalries, shifting tastes, and financial risks. Yet through it all, Vivaldi proved himself not only a master of melody, but also a shrewd man of the theater, capable of writing arias that captured a character's emotion in a single stroke. Still, it was in the concerto that Vivaldi found his truest voice. Before him, the concerto was a form still taking shape, a dialogue between soloist and orchestra without clear rules. Vivaldi seized it and defined it. He wrote over 500 concertos in his lifetime, of which more than 200 were for the violin, his own instrument. But he did not stop there. He composed for bassoon, cello, oboe, flute, mandolin, even for combinations of instruments that no one had thought to feature before. Each concerto was a laboratory of ideas, an experiment in color, rhythm, and texture. He established the three-movement form that would dominate the concerto for centuries: fast, slow, fast. He crystallized the ritornello structure, in which a recurring theme by the orchestra alternates with dazzling episodes by the soloist. This gave the music both unity and freedom, architecture and improvisatory brilliance. More than anyone before him, Vivaldi showed what the concerto could be. Not a dry academic exercise, but a theater of virtuosity, an arena of drama without words. His most famous work, of course, is The Four Seasons, a set of 4 violin concertos published in 1725 as part of a collection called Il Cimento dell'Armonia e dell'Invenzione, the contest between harmony and invention. Each concerto is accompanied by a sonnet, probably written by Vivaldi himself, describing scenes of nature, birds singing, storms breaking, peasants dancing, hunters chasing prey, ice cracking underfoot. The music translates these images with startling vividness. You hear the thunder in the violins, the barking of the dog in the viola, the shiver of cold in tremolo strings. For audiences of the time, this was something new and exhilarating. Instrumental music painting pictures as vividly as any opera aria. And for us today, it remains a perennial favorite, endlessly recorded, endlessly performed, endlessly fresh. But to speak only of the Four Seasons is to miss the breadth of Vivaldi's invention. In his concertos, you hear not only storms and sunshine, but also the pulse of Venice itself, the glitter of its festivals, the surge at its processions, the sparkle of light on water. In his slow movements, often built on simple sustained chords over a singing melody, you hear an intimacy that feels centuries ahead of its time. Anticipating the lyrical outpourings of Mozart and even the song-like adagios of romantic concertos, Vivaldi's fame spread quickly beyond Venice. His works were published in Amsterdam, collected in Dresden, performed in Paris. Musicians across Europe copied his style, learned from his techniques, borrowed his themes. Johann Sebastian Bach, in distant Leipzig, studied Vivaldi's concertos with fervor, transcribing them for keyboard, absorbing their clarity and rhythmic drive. Bach's own concertos owe a profound debt to the Red Priest. To be studied by Bach is no small compliment. It is as if one giant recognized another across the miles. And yet, for all his success, Vivaldi lived in a world of instability. Venice was entering decline, its power waning. Opera companies collapsed as quickly as they rose. Patrons were generous one year and stingy the next. Vivaldi was prolific, restless, always on the move, chasing commissions, traveling to Mantua, Rome, and Vienna. He cultivated powerful connections, including the Austrian Emperor Charles VI, who admired him greatly. But he also earned enemies, critics who accused him of being repetitive, of writing too many concertos that sounded alike. Indeed, with such a flood of compositions, some were bound to resemble others, though in truth each one carries its own spark of originality. There were also whispers about his personal life. Vivaldi never married, bound as he was by his priestly vows, but he formed close associations with certain singers, particularly Anna Guiraud, a mezzo-soprano for whom he wrote many roles. Their relationship fueled gossip, though no evidence proves anything beyond artistic partnership. What is clear is that Vivaldi understood the human voice as deeply as he understood the violin, and in Guiraud he found a muse. As the 1730s wore on, tastes shifted. The new style of opera favored different forms, simpler lines, a move toward what we now call the classical style. Vivaldi's elaborate concertos and ornate arias seemed old-fashioned to some ears. Commissions grew fewer, and financial troubles multiplied. By 1740, he left Venice for Vienna, perhaps seeking support from his imperial admirer. But Charles VI died soon after, and Vivaldi found himself stranded, without patronage, without resources. The once famous composer who had thrilled Europe died the following year in obscurity. Buried in a simple grave, his passing barely noted. For nearly 2 centuries, his name faded into shadow. His music lay forgotten in archives, his reputation eclipsed by those who came after. Only in the early 20th century did scholars and performers begin to rediscover his scores, piecing together manuscripts, publishing editions, performing concertos that had not been heard for generations. Then came the explosion. The Four Seasons was recorded again and again, becoming one of the most recognizable works in all of classical music. Suddenly, Vivaldi was everywhere. On radio, in commercials, in films, on ice skating rinks, in jazz adaptations, even in electronic remixes. The forgotten priest of Venice had become a superstar. Yet beyond the popularity, there is the deeper truth. Vivaldi shaped the very language of instrumental music. He showed how rhythm can drive forward like a heartbeat, how harmony can shift with clarity, how melody can soar like a singer even when played on wooden string. He demonstrated that instrumental music need not be abstract, but can tell stories, paint pictures, stir emotions as vividly as any opera. Without Vivaldi, there would be no Bach concertos as we know them, no Mozart concertos in their form, no Beethoven violin concerto in its grandeur. He is a pillar upon which much of later music rests. Today, when we listen to him, we can almost imagine Venice again. Gondolas rocking on the lagoon, masked dancers swirling through carnival, the domes of San Marco glowing at sunset. His music is Venice's echo, forever shimmering, forever alive. And within it beats the heart of a man who, though fragile in body, possessed inexhaustible creative fire. The Red Priest, who turned illness into energy, confinement into liberation, and who left us a treasury of sound that still quickens the pulse of the world. And so we remember Antonio Vivaldi, not as the forgotten man he was at his death, but as the giant he truly is, a craftsman of joy and passion, a builder of forms, a conjurer of seasons, a priest of music whose flame, once nearly extinguished, now burns brightly across centuries. Thank you for listening to this episode of Classical Giants, produced by Selenius Media, music by The Artificial Laboratory.